All right, let's talk about a book that completely flipped the script on personal finance for millions of people. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You've probably heard of it, right? Today, we're going to tear it down and really get into the core ideas that made this book so incredibly influential. Let's dive in.
Okay, so the whole book, the entire thing, really hinges on this one powerful idea. It's not about what's in your bank account right now. Nope. It's about what's going on between your ears. It's about how you think about money. The book argues that becoming wealthy is a mental game long before it's a numbers game. Your mind, that's the real asset. It's this super powerful machine for creating wealth, but only if you know how to turn it on and use it right.
So, the story kicks off with the author, Robert, who basically had two dads growing up. You have his real dad, who he calls Poor Dad. This guy was brilliant, highly educated, had a safe government job. You know the type. And then you have his best friend's dad, his rich dad. This guy was an entrepreneur who dropped out of school when he was just 13. And man, when it came to money, they were polar opposites. Poor Dad would say, the love of money is the root of all evil. But Rich Dad, he'd fire back with, no, the lack of money is the root of all evil. Just imagine growing up, hearing these two completely different takes on life. It forced Robert to think for himself and decide which path he was going to follow.
All right, so let's get into it. How did these two totally different ways of thinking actually play out in the real world? We're going to look at the advice they gave on some of the biggest things in life.
This right here, this says it all. Poor Dad's advice is what most of us have heard our whole lives, right? Go to school, get good grades, find a safe, secure job. You're basically told to become a really good cog in the machine. But Rich Dad's advice, whoa, it just flips the whole thing on its head. He says, study hard so you can find a good company to buy. It's the difference between working in the system and owning the system. One is about working for money, the other is about having money work for you.
And what about risk? Oh boy, another huge split. Poor Dad's philosophy was all about fear. Don't take risks, play it safe. He saw risk as this big, scary thing you should run away from. But Rich Dad, he was like, no. You don't avoid risk, you learn to manage it. For him, the real risk, the thing that's truly dangerous, is being financially ignorant. So the goal isn't to hide from risk, it's to get smart enough that you can take calculated risks and win.
Okay, get ready for this one, because this is the idea that really messes with people's heads. We're all told our house is our biggest asset, right? That's exactly what Poor Dad believed. But Rich Dad, he said, my house is a liability. A liability. Why? Because every single month it's taking money out of your pocket for the mortgage, for taxes, for repairs, you name it. And this simple, kind of shocking distinction is what sets up the biggest lesson in the entire book. But before we can talk about how to get out, we have to understand what we're trying to get out of. Rich Dad had a name for it, the rat race. And it's this trap, this endless cycle that keeps most of us financially spinning our wheels, no matter how hard we work or how much our paycheck goes up.
Look at this. Does this cycle feel a little familiar? Get up, go to work, pay the bills, and then what? You do it all over again the next day. It's so simple, but it's also brutally effective at keeping you stuck. You earn money, but then poof, it's gone, out the door to pay for everything. So you have to go back to work. And the crazy part is, even when you get a raise, what happens? Your expenses just seem to magically grow with it. You're still in the same loop, just maybe with a nicer car or a bigger TV.
So what's actually driving this whole thing? The book uses this perfect analogy of a donkey chasing a carrot on a stick. There are two emotions at play. First, there's fear, the fear of being broke, of not being able to pay your bills. That's the stick that pushes you out the door to work every morning. But then there's desire, or greed. You see that new gadget, that vacation, and that's the carrot that pulls you. It makes you want to spend more. It's this constant push and pull, and you're just like that donkey, chasing a carrot you can never, ever catch.
So here's the bottom line. The rat race isn't really a money problem. It's an emotional problem. It's powered by fear and greed. But what's the foundation holding this whole trap up? One single thing: financial ignorance. The book argues that because most of us are never taught how money actually works, we just let our emotions run the show. And that's a recipe for staying stuck.
Okay, so how do you escape? What's the escape hatch? Well, according to Rich Dad, it's not about working harder. It's not even about getting a bigger paycheck. The secret,
The real key to freedom is developing your financial literacy. And this is it. This is rule number 1. Honestly, if you only remember one thing from this explainer, make it this. It's so incredibly simple, but it changes everything. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. That's it. One feeds you, the other eats you. If you can just get this one concept down, you're already on your way.
Let's actually visualize this. Here's the typical cash flow pattern for most folks. See, the money comes in from your job, and then it flows right back out again through the expense column to pay for taxes, the mortgage, the car, food, you know the drill. But look over at the asset column. It's empty. This is exactly why just getting a raise rarely makes you rich. The money just finds new ways to escape because there's no system in place to capture.
Now let's flip it and look at how the rich do it. It's a totally different picture. Their focus isn't on their salary. It's all about that asset column. They spend their time and energy buying things that generate money, things like rental properties, stocks, or businesses. They are building a money-making machine. And look, the income from that machine pays for their expenses, and any money left over, it gets pumped right back into buying more assets, making the machine even bigger. It's a cycle, but it's a cycle of growth, not a cycle of just getting by.
So again, it all boils down to this one simple rule. This is the whole game, right here. You have to know the difference between an asset and a liability, and you have to spend your life buying assets. The reason the rich get richer is because that's their entire focus. Meanwhile, so many of us spend our money buying liabilities that we've been told are assets. Getting that one distinction right, that changes everything.
Okay, so knowing the difference is one thing, that's the what. But actually doing it, that's a whole other ballgame. And Rich Dad says the biggest things holding us back aren't out there, they're in here. They're the roadblocks we put up in our own minds.
Here's a huge mental shift you can make right now. Think about how often we say, I can't afford it. The second you say that, your brain just shuts down. End of story. It's a dead end. But what if, instead, you asked, how can I afford it? See the difference? That's a question. It forces your brain to wake up, to start problem solving, to get creative. It's like taking your financial brain to the gym.
So Rich Dad points to 5 big reasons why people stay stuck. First, plain old fear, specifically the fear of losing money. Then you've got cynicism. You know, that little voice that shoots down every new idea before you even consider it. Third is laziness, which a lot of times we disguise by saying we're too busy. Fourth, bad habits, like the habit of paying all your bills before you invest in your own assets. And finally, arrogance. The book defines this as a dangerous combination of ego and ignorance.
And that point about fear is so critical. Think about it. In school, we're taught that making mistakes is the worst thing you can do. You get a big red F. But in the real world, in life, failure is how you learn anything important. Winners are not people who never fail. They are people who aren't defeated by failure. They know it's a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. If you spend your whole life trying to avoid failure, you're also going to avoid success.
So when you boil it all down, the message of this book is actually super empowering. It's saying your financial future isn't decided by your boss or your salary. It's decided by you. It's about the choices you make every single day with every single dollar you get.
So what's the game plan? What can you actually do? Well, here's Rich Dad's core advice. First, mind your own business, and that's code for build your asset column. Second, work to learn, don't just work for money. Choose jobs that give you valuable skills. Third, and this is a big one, pay yourself first, meaning you put money into your assets before you pay your bills. Fourth, use your assets to buy luxuries. Let your money-making machine buy the fun stuff, not your own sweat. And last, choose your heroes and friends carefully, because the people you surround yourself with, well, you're going to become like them.
And that brings us right back to the central question, the one you have to ask yourself. Are you working for money, or is your money working for you? The book says that every single dollar you get is like a vote for the kind of person you want to be. You can choose to be a slave to money, or you can choose to be its master. And that choice is entirely yours. Thanks for tuning in to The Explainer.